Jennifer Aniston has always been known as someone who values peace, privacy, and emotional balance, especially after decades of living under constant media attention. Unlike many celebrities who thrive on publicity, she has repeatedly said in interviews that she prefers a quiet life, close friends, and clear personal boundaries. That is why recent claims circulating online have caught so much attention. According to reports attributed to a recent entertainment interview, Aniston allegedly spoke about a situation that had been bothering her for years. She described receiving repeated invitations from Meghan Markle to visit her Montecito home. Invitations that allegedly came through mutual friends rather than directly. These invitations were said to have happened over a long period of time, reportedly stretching back as far as 6 years. Aniston allegedly described the situation as uncomfortable, saying she did not know Meghan personally and did not understand the reason behind the continued outreach. While no official transcript has been released publicly and Meghan Markle has not responded to these claims, the story quickly spread across social media and celebrity news platforms. Fans and commentators immediately began debating what these invitations really meant. Some viewed them as harmless social networking, something common in elite circles like Montecito, where neighbors often connect through shared acquaintances. Others, however, felt the repeated nature of the invitations raised questions about boundaries and persistence. To understand why this story gained so much traction, it is important to look at the setting. Montecito is not just a wealthy neighborhood, it is a symbol of elite Hollywood power. Many influential figures live there, including Oprah Winfrey, Ellen DeGeneres, and other long-established stars. When Meghan Markle and Prince Harry moved there after stepping back from royal duties in 2020, many observers believed the choice was strategic. Montecito offered privacy, prestige, and proximity to influential people who could help rebuild a public image away from the royal spotlight. Around the same time, Meghan launched several projects, including media deals, charity work, and lifestyle branding efforts. These moves placed her back into the center of public discussion, though reactions were mixed. Jennifer Aniston, on the other hand, represents a very different kind of Hollywood success. She is widely liked, rarely involved in public feuds, and has maintained strong friendships for decades. When she reportedly purchased her Montecito home in 2022, some observers believed her presence alone elevated the area's social importance even further. According to claims from unnamed sources, it was after this move that invitations from Meghan allegedly became more frequent. These invitations were said to be framed as casual, friendly gatherings, often suggested through shared connections rather than formal requests. Supporters of Meghan argue that this type of outreach is normal in Hollywood, where social relationships often blend with professional opportunities. Critics, however, believe the repeated nature of the invitations may have crossed an unspoken line, especially given Aniston's well-known desire for privacy. This contrast between two very different personalities is what fuels the story's intrigue. One represents careful distance and emotional boundaries. The other represents active networking and public reinvention. Whether these differences alone explain the situation remains open to interpretation, but they set the stage for why this alleged interaction became such a talking point. As the alleged timeline unfolds, commentators point out that the invitations reportedly followed a pattern. According to speculation shared online, the outreach often coincided with moments when Jennifer Aniston was receiving positive attention, such as award nominations, major project releases, or public praise for her work. Some critics interpret this timing as strategic, suggesting the invitations may have been linked to visibility and influence, rather than personal connection. Others caution against reading too much into coincidence, noting that social calendars in Hollywood often revolve around public events and career milestones. Still, the consistency of the claims has kept the conversation alive. Sources described as industry insiders have suggested that Aniston began to feel uneasy, not because of a single invitation, but because of the ongoing nature of the outreach over several years. She allegedly felt that her polite refusals were not being fully respected. It is important to stress that these details remain unverified and are based largely on second-hand accounts. However, what intensified the public reaction was Aniston's alleged choice of words. Describing the situation as creepy, according to reports, struck a nerve with audiences. That word carries emotional weight and implies discomfort rather than anger. Many fans interpreted it as a sign that Aniston felt her personal space was being pressured. This reaction was amplified by context from her past. In recent years, Aniston has spoken openly about the importance of safety and mental well-being, especially after dealing with a serious stalking incident that reportedly affected her sense of security. Against that backdrop, any repeated unwanted attention, no matter how indirect, could understandably feel unsettling. Social media responses quickly split into camps. Supporters of Aniston praised her for speaking openly and setting boundaries, viewing her comments as an example of healthy self-advocacy. Others defended Meghan, arguing that networking through mutual friends is common, and that labeling it negatively without direct confrontation could be unfair. Some observers suggested the entire situation may have been a misunderstanding that grew larger through media framing. Still, critics of Meghan pointed to past reports describing strained relationships, staff turnover, and public disputes, using them to argue that persistence and overreach might be part of a broader pattern. Again, these interpretations rely heavily on opinion rather than confirmed facts. What added fuel to the discussion was the silence from Meghan's side. No official statement was released, no clarification offered, and no denial issued. In the world of celebrity culture, silence is often read as meaningful, though it can also simply reflect a decision not to engage. Industry watchers debated whether responding would help or worsen the situation. Meanwhile, hashtags related to boundaries, consent, and personal space trended briefly, showing how the story tapped into larger cultural conversations. This was no longer just about two famous neighbors. It became a discussion about how much persistence is too much, especially in social environments where power and influence matter. Mutual friends allegedly involved in passing along invitations were also discussed, with some commentators noting how uncomfortable it can be to act as a middle person when one side keeps pushing and the other keeps declining. This indirect pressure, critics argue, can make situations feel more intrusive than a direct request. Whether intentional or not, the alleged pattern raised questions about how social ambition can clash with personal comfort. At its core, the story highlights how easily networking can be interpreted differently depending on context, personality, and past experiences. Looking at the bigger picture, this situation reflects deeper truths about modern Hollywood and celebrity culture. Fame today is not just about talent, it is about relationships, access, and perception. In elite communities like Montecito, friendships often double as professional alliances, and invitations can carry symbolic weight. For someone rebuilding a public identity, connecting with well-loved figures can appear valuable. At the same time, long-established stars like Jennifer Aniston have spent years learning how to protect their peace. They know that not every invitation is harmless, and not every connection is necessary. If the reports are accurate, Aniston's decision to speak openly, even briefly, sent a clear message. It showed that politeness does not require silence, and that setting boundaries does not need to be aggressive to be effective. Commentators have described her approach as calm, direct, and emotionally grounded. Rather than attacking or accusing, she simply expressed discomfort and confusion, allowing audiences to draw their own conclusions. This method may explain why public reaction leans strongly in her favor. It felt relatable and human. For Meghan Markle, the implications are more complex. Critics argue that the story adds to an image of social overreach, while supporters insist it reflects unfair interpretation and bias. Without a direct response, the narrative has largely been shaped by speculation and public opinion, rather than confirmed dialogue. Some observers believe this moment could encourage a shift toward quieter, more focused projects that do not rely on elite social validation. Others argue the story will fade, like many celebrity controversies before it. What remains clear is that this episode has reinforced an important cultural lesson. In an era increasingly focused on consent, boundaries, and emotional safety, persistence is no longer automatically admired. What once looked like ambition can now be viewed as pressure, depending on how it is received. Jennifer Aniston's alleged comments resonated because they echoed a broader social shift toward respecting personal limits, even in glamorous spaces. Whether this situation represents a misunderstanding, a clash of personalities, or something deeper, it has sparked conversation about how power operates quietly behind closed gates. It reminds audiences that even among the wealthy and famous, human comfort still matters. Doors do not open simply because influence demands it. They open when both sides feel welcome. As Hollywood continues to evolve, stories like this may become more common, not because boundaries are new, but because people are finally speaking about them openly. In the end, this is less about blame and more about awareness. It is a reminder that saying no is not cruel, that silence is not consent, and that even in the most polished environments, respect remains the true measure of connection. As the story continued to circulate, one of the most interesting developments was not what either woman allegedly did or said, but how the public reacted to it. In today's digital age, perception often becomes reality, faster than facts can catch up. Social media platforms turned a single reported comment into thousands of opinions, reactions, and emotional debates. Many people felt they recognized themselves in Jennifer Aniston's position. The idea of politely declining something again and again, only to feel uncomfortable over time, resonated with everyday experiences. People shared stories of coworkers, acquaintances, or even friends who did not respect quiet refusals. Because of this, Aniston's alleged response felt relatable, not dramatic. It sounded like someone finally expressing discomfort after years of patience. This emotional connection helped the narrative spread quickly. At the same time, Meghan Markle became the center of renewed scrutiny. For years, she has been a polarizing figure, often inspiring strong opinions on both sides. Supporters argue she is judged unfairly and held to impossible standards, while critics believe her actions frequently create unnecessary tension. In this case, the lack of a public response from her camp allowed speculation to grow unchecked. Media outlets, content creators, and commentators filled the silence with their own interpretations. Headlines became more dramatic, focusing on words like creepy, obsession, and rejection, even though much of the story remained based on unnamed sources. This highlights how modern celebrity media works. Stories are rarely allowed to remain small or nuanced. Instead, they are shaped into narratives that fit existing opinions. Algorithms reward outrage, certainty, and emotional language, not careful balance. As a result, what may have started as a private discomfort turned into a symbol of something much larger. The media's role in amplifying this moment cannot be ignored. Repetition of the story across platforms made it feel confirmed, even without new evidence. Each retelling added layers of interpretation, slowly hardening speculation into assumed truth for many viewers. This process raises important questions about responsibility. Should public figures always respond to stop speculation? Or does responding sometimes make things worse? Some crises fade when ignored, while others grow louder. In this situation, the silence from Meghan's side was interpreted by critics as avoidance, while supporters viewed it as restraint. Meanwhile, Jennifer Aniston's alleged words continued to be praised for their calm delivery. People noted that she did not insult, threaten, or accuse directly. She simply expressed how the situation made her feel. That distinction matters. It reflects a growing cultural shift where emotional honesty is valued more than confrontation. Over time, this moment may be remembered less as a feud and more as an example of changing social expectations. In the past, persistence in elite social circles was often admired. It was seen as determination or ambition. Today, those same behaviors are being re-evaluated through the lens of consent and emotional safety. This shift is not limited to Hollywood. It reflects broader conversations happening in workplaces, friendships, and communities everywhere. People are increasingly encouraged to respect unspoken boundaries, not just explicit rejections. The long-term impact of this story may not be about either celebrity's career, but about how it reinforces these evolving norms. For Jennifer Aniston, the outcome appears largely positive. Her image as grounded, self-aware, and emotionally intelligent has been reinforced. For Meghan Markle, the situation adds complexity to an already challenging public narrative. Whether fair or not, it serves as another reminder that perception often matters as much as intention. Ultimately, this episode shows how fragile reputation can be in a world where stories move faster than confirmation. It also shows the power of words, especially simple ones. A single expression of discomfort can reshape a narrative, spark widespread discussion, and influence how people think about boundaries. As time passes, new stories will replace this one, but the underlying lesson will remain. Respect is not proven by access or proximity. It is proven by listening, restraint, and the ability to step back when someone quietly says no. In that sense, this story extends far beyond Montecito, beyond celebrity culture, and into everyday life, reminding everyone that true connection cannot be forced, no matter how powerful or well-connected someone may be. As this story slowly settles, it becomes clear that its impact reaches far beyond gossip or celebrity headlines. At its core, this situation is not just about two famous people living in the same wealthy neighborhood. It is about how modern society understands boundaries, persistence, and personal comfort. Jennifer Aniston's alleged comments struck a chord because they reflected something many people experience but struggle to express. The feeling of being polite for too long, of hoping a situation will resolve itself quietly, and of eventually realizing that silence has been mistaken for permission. That moment of realization is uncomfortable, but it is also powerful. By speaking openly, even briefly, Aniston may have given others permission to trust their instincts and voice discomfort without guilt. The public reaction suggests that many people recognize this emotional truth in her words. They did not see cruelty or arrogance. They saw clarity. At the same time, this story highlights how intention does not always match perception. Meghan Markle's outreach, whether social, professional, or neighborly, may not have been meant to cause unease. In elite environments like Montecito, social invitations and indirect connections are common. However, when repeated over time and declined consistently, even well-meaning actions can begin to feel intrusive. This does not require bad intent to create discomfort. It simply requires misalignment between how one person gives and how another receives. That gap is where misunderstandings grow. The absence of a public response from Meghan's side has allowed the story to be shaped largely by outside voices. Some view this silence as wise restraint, while others see it as missed opportunity to clarify. In reality, there is no perfect response in situations like this. Speaking can escalate tension, while staying quiet can allow narratives to harden. What remains important is recognizing that public perception often moves independently of private truth. Once a story enters the public space, it rarely belongs fully to the people involved anymore. It becomes a reflection of collective beliefs, biases, and emotions. This episode also reveals how fame magnifies ordinary human interactions. A situation that might remain private between non-famous neighbors becomes a cultural discussion when celebrities are involved. Media outlets, commentators, and online creators add layers of meaning, sometimes responsibly, sometimes recklessly. This makes it even more important for audiences to consume such stories thoughtfully. Not every headline represents the full picture, and not every silence confirms guilt. As viewers, there is value in holding space for uncertainty. The most lasting lesson from this situation may be the reminder that boundaries are not attacks. Saying no is not rejection of a person's worth, and stepping back is not a failure. In a world that often rewards persistence and ambition, it can be difficult to accept limits. Yet respect is shown not through insistence, but through understanding. Jennifer Aniston's alleged handling of the situation illustrates this idea clearly. She did not dramatize, insult, or escalate. She simply described how something made her feel and drew a line. That approach, calm and honest, may be why her words resonated so strongly. For Meghan Markle, the path forward remains open. Public narratives change quickly, and moments like this can become turning points rather than endpoints. Whether through quieter work, clearer communication, or time away from public scrutiny, there are many ways to reshape perception. What matters most is alignment between intention and impact. When those two meet, trust can begin to rebuild. In the end, this story serves as a mirror. It reflects how society is learning to value emotional safety as much as success, consent as much as connection, and restraint as much as reach. It encourages people to listen not only to words, but to patterns. It reminds us that access to someone's space, time, or energy is not a right, even when offered politely. As the attention moves on and new stories take its place, this one leaves behind a quiet but meaningful message. True respect is shown when we recognize when to step forward, and just as importantly, when to step back. That lesson, far more than any headline, is what will endure long after the conversation fades. As the dust begins to settle, what remains most interesting is not the rumor itself, but how quickly it became a mirror for public attitudes and personal experiences. Long after headlines move on, stories like this tend to linger, because they tap into something familiar. Many viewers did not focus on celebrity status at all. Instead, they focused on the emotional pattern, the slow buildup of discomfort, the repeated polite declines, the quiet hope that persistence will eventually stop without confrontation. These are situations people recognize from their own lives, whether at work, within social circles, or even among extended family. That recognition is why the story kept circulating even after no new information appeared. It stopped being just a celebrity topic and became a conversation about how people interpret signals, how often boundaries are ignored unintentionally, and how difficult it can be to speak up after long silence. In the aftermath, some commentators have noted that Jennifer Aniston's alleged response felt grounded, because it did not demand punishment or public backlash. It simply described a feeling and explained why that feeling mattered. This approach stands in contrast to how conflict is often handled online, where extremes dominate and nuance disappears. By keeping the focus on personal experience rather than accusation, the story shifted attention away from drama and toward reflection. For audiences, this created space to think rather than react. Many people began asking themselves quiet questions. Have I ever pushed too hard, assuming friendliness was welcome? Have I ever stayed silent when something made me uncomfortable, hoping it would resolve itself? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are also necessary. They suggest growth. From a cultural standpoint, this moment fits into a